Okay, back on my channel today to talk through all the big issues. Delighted to say Patrick O'Flynn. Patrick, first of all, as ever, how are you?
Well, I'm a little bit weary because it's been a long month. I've been doing what Donald Trump would say are great numbers, fantastic numbers. But as we come towards the end of the month, I'm looking forward to a couple of days rest and recuperation. But delighted to do this, probably my final bit of journalism for the month for the Michael Heaver channel.
Well, I'm absolutely honoured for that. But look, I just want to start off with comments from London Mayor Sadiq Khan, Patrick. The latest politician, Remainer, to talk about supporting the UK rejoining the EU single market. Now, of course, you've had recently a Labour shadow minister talk about going back into the single market and the customs union. You've got the Lib Dems clearly saying that's their ambition in terms of rejoining the EU single market. You even had a Conservative MP in Tobias Ellwood talk about rejoining the EU single market. It hasn't taken some Remainers long to start talking about this already. In terms of the run-up to the next general election, do you think this will be in manifestos? Or, like me, do you think this is more likely that actually the likes of Labour and the Lib Dems will try and downplay the sort of rejoin agenda until and if there's a deal to be done post-election between Labour and the Lib Dems to get into power, taking the UK back into the EU single market?
Yeah, I think the Lib Dems have got more scope to campaign on it than Labour has, although as they increasingly start to threaten in sort of middle-class Tory sort of soft leave seats, maybe they'll downplay it as well. I definitely think it won't be in the Labour manifesto. Labour will want to downplay it because Labour needs to get those red wall seats back. But then you've got particular Labour politicians such as Sadiq Khan in London, who, from their point of view, they can win brownie points for themselves by raising this spectre of partially reversing Brexit. But I think, you know, the future of our relations with the EU is not really going to be written down in manifestos. It's about what the actual leaders on the bill believe in. And we all know that Starmer and almost every Labour frontbencher wants to get the UK back sort of into the EU to the greatest extent possible. So it's all about tactics and nothing about principle. And I think if the Tories can get that over to the red wall voters, it will be a powerful deterrent against them voting Labour in a general election.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you in that I think the real risk here is not so much that Labour openly campaign on this because they recognise, you know, how unpopular it is after getting smashed at the last general election, but that, for instance, if this was a Lib Dem, you know, proposal in order to get Keir Starmer into Downing Street, do people really believe that Starmer would say no if that was the price?
I think that's right. I think he would be able to say, look, no one's manifesto commitments carried the British public. We have to kind of patch together a partnership as best we can, you know, and, you know, I'm going to have to go along with some kind of soft single market or reintegration. So obviously it would be horse trading after a hung parliament. And you can expect the Tories to try and run this as a big consideration during an election campaign. So in the end, you know, coalition and chaos and all that, they'll hope that that will do for them what it did back in, I think it was the 2015 election, when particularly Nicola Sturgeon was the chief bogeyman there. So, you know, Keir Starmer stood up, didn't he, just before the 2017 election and said Labour would have to support Brexit as a matter of principle. He then spent 2 years or more trying to block it. So no one should believe anything he says on it anyway. Just go with your instincts about where he stands.
I've got to say, Patrick, I'm, you know, perhaps I shouldn't be, but I'm sort of struck and slightly surprised that already you've got, as I've said, you know, the likes of the Lib Dems, the likes of Tobias Ellwood, the likes of a Labour shadow minister and Sadiq Khan himself as London Mayor, already talking about this rejoin EU single market agenda. Are you surprised by how quickly some Remainers who just clearly can't contain themselves already trying to push this rejoin message?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think they are still, you know, suffering from PTSD about losing the referendum, which they didn't really understand was a big possibility in the first place. On the other hand, I think there's a bit of a worry on the Brexit side. We can't be complacent about the voters, and the government in particular has to start doing much more to take advantage of Brexit freedoms. And you hear Tory MPs sort of saying, "Oh well, Tiverton and Honiton is overwhelmingly pro-Brexit." Well, let's hope so, and it was in 2016. But just to take it for granted that those voters are in your block forever without actually doing much to demonstrate to them why Brexit is a great idea. Why not scrap the VAT on domestic energy bills, for instance? Why not be much more rigorous about immigration from the EU as well as not as from outside the EU? Why not start going through and identifying kind of major regulation which is holding Britain back? If we don't start doing that, or seeing the Tory government doing that, then it's not impossible to see voters who are sort of soft leavers becoming demoralized. So I actually think it's important for the government of Boris Johnson to step up here and show more energy and get their shoulders to the wheel. COVID is pretty much in the rear view mirror as a sort of major killer, as the number one story. And they need to actually start putting flesh on the bones of what a successful post-Brexit Britain looks like.